So on January 22nd of this year, Kari Anderson, Forbes columnist, wrote an article called From the Inside Out, Speeding Your Company's Social Transformation. Kari, did you have any idea how prescient that was to this conference? So we're going to go on a journey in the next 14 minutes. This is a journey inside the firewall. This is internal social business. It's a dirty, mean, nasty place. But come with me. We've got two companies, two practitioners who have operationalized social business inside their company. Please join me in welcoming. We have Doug Dundas, the Chief Marketing Officer of Marsh, Inc., and Susan Davison, the Director of Employee Engagement at Kraft Foods. So Doug, Marsh is a 126-year-old company. It is a very traditional company. You took on the project of implementing social business inside the company. Why did you do that?
That's a very good question. I ask myself that a lot, actually. But it actually was installed. Internal social collaboration was installed probably 2 years before I got there. I've been there for about a year and a half. In 2010, Marsh installed a very, I think, forward-thinking, very aggressive, very ambitious social platform. There was no tools. It was built from scratch, and it got a fair amount of adoption, a fair amount of activity, a lot of engagement, and I think it started to show the promise of the capability. The issue was it was home built, so it didn't have all the benefits of a common platform, a Facebook style platform, et cetera. And the second was it was run somewhat as a sort of a skunkworks project. It was once run somewhat independently of the core business. So, for example, while there was a lot of dialogue happening around a lot of issues and a lot of engagement, there wasn't a lot of dialogue happening around clients, prospects, accounts, et cetera. The things where our bread and butter comes from.
And Susan, you had a very different experience. Now, Kraft is a very well-known brand. It's made up of several very well-known brands, all doing very well. What was your mindset? What were some of your objectives when you took on this type of initiative?
Yeah, we came at it from much more of a cultural change driver. To give you some context, we separated last year. Kraft had been a large, global organization. We separated into two different companies, a global company and a North American, what we call grocery company, which is the new Kraft Foods. So we took that opportunity to really remake our company. We had a 109-year history that we could build on, but we could also remake the company into something different, something fresh, something new. And from an employee communications perspective, we looked at this as the opportunity to remake employee communications. So, we were going through this cultural transformation where we were really breaking down walls, breaking down silos within the organization, and encouraging greater connections and collaboration. And we took that virtual. So we took it to our intranet for all of our employees to engage in a conversation and connect with each other.
And I would just like to note that is the first time we've heard intranet mentioned this entire conference, but you'll hear it again. So I mentioned that social business inside the firewall is complicated. Doug, your stakeholders are very successful senior executives, client executives, account managers who have built Marsh very successfully with a pen, some paper, and some really good lunches and dinners. When you talk about getting them to change the way they're working, how did you approach that?
Yeah, I think there are really two dimensions, and there's two. When we looked at our current platform, which was again, very forward-thinking, but not really helping drive the business. So not only that, it kind of came with some baggage of being perceived as, well, that's really nice, but what does that have to do with our business? So about earlier this year, about April or so, we installed Chatter, which is the Salesforce social collaboration platform for all of our sales colleagues, which is about 8,200 of them around the world, who were already on the Salesforce CRM platform. And then about 2 months ago, we added it for the remaining 22,000 colleagues around the world. So today, all 26,000 colleagues plus about 4,000 freelancers are using the Chatter social collaboration platform. The way we were able to sell that expansion, or that conversion, I should say, from the old platform to Salesforce, it was really driving 2 points home. Number one is, this is existential. This is, talk about the traditions of our business. This started before the telephone. Henry Marsh was there riding his horse to his clients, and it worked. But when the telephone came along, we had to adapt. We had to use that, and that became a very important part of our business. Same with computers, same with the internet. And it's clear that social media, within a generation at the very most, if a company like ours, a company like Kraft, or any company is not conversant on it, is not using it to communicate, they're not going to be, they can't stay in business. They're not going to attract employees, and they're not going to attract clients. So there was an existential threat argument. The second one was, while there's an existential threat down the road, what about right now? There's a lot of opportunity now, if we can understand this technology and if we can engage this technology and leverage it to grow the business. And which brings me to one of the interesting issues we're struggling with now is metrics, which is, okay, we've spent this money, we've done this, we're seeing our usage of this platform skyrocket, and it is skyrocketing, it's exponential growth. But where is the direct line between the ROI? Where's the ROI? We spent this, where's the money coming in on the other side? And those metrics are not that well baked in my experience, certainly not on the B2B side. I think you can do much more on the B2C side, where you build a community, you can monetize that community, you know what you're making. The B2B side, which is still very relationship driven, it's not that easy to show the direct line between the investment in the platform and the return on it.
Excellent points. And Susan, I'm thinking about your comment of employee engagement. I'm envisioning inside of Kraft experts in their various brands, experts on product placement, on product design, scientists. Employee engagement, if I'm an expert in one of these brands, I know my business inside and out. What is my motivation to communicate and collaborate across business, across geography?
So I think there's a couple of things. I mean, first of all, we're all Kraft. So we all wear the Kraft jersey first and foremost versus, our particular brand or our particular business. We all work for the same company. I think there's huge power in making those connections among employees. So, employees are able to connect with other people that they normally wouldn't be able to connect with. We have people all across the country that in my day-to-day job, I may never have the opportunity to connect with those people. By opening up the communications channels, there's a real power in building that connection and a power in building pride in our company. And then the other piece is, there's lots of opportunities. So if I have an idea, let's say, I can post it on our intranet, and there's that word again, and in another function, another business unit, somebody in another part of the company might be interested in my idea. So again, there's real power in that, and there's real power in sharing that information.
I love that we're hearing from two large, complicated companies that approach this for very different reasons. From Doug's standpoint, it's about driving business ultimately, and he's dealing with financial executives. From Susan's standpoint, it's about employee engagement and getting people to communicate and collaborate more effectively. I'd like to hear from each of you on some of the challenges you ran into. This is not an easy process. What were the obstacles, and how did you address them?
I think the inertia of a large organization that's been doing business one way for 125 years. That's a big ship to turn, and I think in any kind of a large cultural change in a big established organization, you really can't push that change. You have to bring that change. You have to draw it. So it's the carrot stick analogy. You have to have a carrot. So we have to position this thing. We have to develop this thing such that it's immediately better, easier, ultimately more productive for our colleagues to use than not to use, and better than the alternatives. And again, I think in our case, the tools have evolved far enough that it's immediately apparent how this is better than doing it before. I mean, it's as soon as in our world, as soon as a colleague gets turned on Chatter, the vast majority are using it, and they're hooked. Facebook is very simple. All our kids can use it. A lot of us still aren't using it, but and probably never will. I understand it's already out of favor, but it's a very simple interface, and I think that allows us to immediately demonstrate how this is easy and how it can actually help you. So I think one of the biggest challenges is moving a large established organization to do things a different way, and the other again is metrics, is showing that this investment is going to grow our business.
Excellent. Susan?
Yeah, I would certainly echo the idea of the change and getting used to such a big change. So for us, we're a company that was 109 years old. This was very different for us to, our homepage, when you open it up, is almost entirely social. And that was a big shift for us. So that certainly was something that, was a challenge, but I will say employees really embraced it. The other thing for us that was a big challenge is timing. I mean, we moved very quickly on this. From inception to launch, it was a little over 2 months. So, we had this idea and we moved forward, and certainly to make it happen within 2 months was a challenge, but I would also say worth it, because it really signaled a change and that we were able to move quickly.
Excellent. And in both cases here, this is not something that was thought of, implemented seamlessly, and complete success within a matter of minutes. It was a social business transformation. And I believe in both cases, this was a restart. This was not a let's approach social for the first time. It's been done. It hasn't really worked the way we wanted it to, but it's worth doing. Let's do it again. Any advice for companies out there that are trying to restart their social business initiative?
I mean, I would say don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to fail. We had launched a social component in a very small way in our organization a while ago. It didn't catch on. It wasn't adopted across the entire company. But I would say, challenge that, and don't look to the past and say it didn't work before, so we're not going to do it again. Look at how you can bring it forward into the future, and don't be afraid.
Excellent advice. Doug?
I would mirror that. I would say, don't be afraid, and don't be afraid to experiment. So, the landscape is shifting so fast. In the year and a half that I've been sort of plugged into this, the interfaces are different. There's all new tools, and even if it didn't work the first time, it's not that hard to see. It's not that hard to demonstrate. Well, here's why it didn't work, and here's what we have or had, and here's what exists now that we could have. And the reality is, you can prototype something for little or no additional cost. And it proves itself fairly quickly. I mean, if you get the right group within the company using it through some kind of innovation council or something, and you can pretty quickly demonstrate capability. I do think it's very important, critically important, to get the right sponsors on board. I think, and the higher up in the organization you can go, the better. I do think there can be a sort of C-suite institutional bias against any kind of change like this. So the more sort of executive level, at least visibility, if not sponsorship, you have engaged, even on a small project, that helps a lot.
I would just absolutely echo that. I mean, I think senior leader support, engagement, involvement from the very beginning is absolutely critical. And if you don't have that, then I think you are up against an enormous obstacle.
And I will say, the existential threat argument, trust me, it works. Use it.
Now, just because your session was titled something with the effect of dinosaurs and dancing doesn't mean you can't be innovative. As you look to the future...
I take offense at that title, by the way, but I don't want to say that.
Duly noted. Please don't tweet that. As you look to the future inside your organizations or inside other similar organizations, what are the possibilities? What gets you excited? Why keep going?
For us, I would say we've just started this journey. So we launched this social tool in February of this year. We're 8 months into it. There's so much opportunity, and it's very exciting. And we are learning every day. Every day there's something we hear from employees that we're learning that we can build on in the future. So I think there's just enormous potential and opportunities also for us to create greater value for our businesses, to keep our employees coming back every single day.
Excellent. Doug, any final thoughts?
I would just say, as a company, there's no doubt that this is fundamentally changing the landscape we're operating in, and it's not often you get to sort of preside over a paradigm shift, in the way your company does business and the way your industry does business. And that's very much where we are right now. On a personal level, my background as a journalist, I'm a communications guy. To be able to be here, frankly, participating in and even helping to define to some degree a new way of communication is extraordinary. Very lucky to be here.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, these are two people who have operationalized social business inside their companies. Please join me in congratulating Doug and Susan.
Thanks, everyone.